welcome to What the Hex, your source for Warhammer Underworlds in under 30 surprise Warband drops. Today I'm your gobsmacked guide through the Underworlds, Phil, and joining me, my equally surprised co-host, Skyler. How you doing, Skyler?
I am drowning.
Yeah, right? I mean, as I think we probably correctly joked and predicted, oh, this drought of content. What is going to happen at the end of this drought of content? Well, as it turns out, not only are we getting a bunch of physical releases, but they decided, hey, here's some more digital ones too, which we knew these were coming. We just didn't know they were coming quite yet.
GW Cast Abyssos Avalanche.
Yeah, the unerrated version. So if you haven't guessed already, we are here today recording on November the 12th, one day after the drop of all of these 13 additional Warband digital releases, because we were caught off guard and would like to have some sort of coverage for you folks.
We had to grab the mic, the two of us. Like, we couldn't be completely shown up by Brian and
Oh,
Davey.
well, yeah, I mean, yeah. We gotta show them that the rules experts and nerds are still the ones running the show here. But to that end, we're just going to do a very quick, like, first takes rundown, which is not normally the kind of thing that we like to do here. But we figured, because there's already a lot of other stuff coming very soon, we figured this is just a good way to get something out there for folks, get our thoughts. So hopefully you find some of this useful and you can start some conversations with it. Before we start running these things down, Skyler, do you have any community shoutouts?
Yeah, I'm actually going to plug us shamelessly.
Oh, wow.
We're going to be streaming the World Championship of Warhammer live from Atlanta next week. It's one of the things that I'm heavily time invested in right now.
Yeah.
Is getting equipment together and getting us up and running. We gave a good go of it, first flight test without knowing that this opportunity was going to come our way at our Q3, and we really enjoyed it. But it was on borrowed equipment and kind of like thrown together the night before and all that kind of thing. So we want to we need to pick up equipment and figure this all out. So we're figuring it all out and putting it all together so that hopefully it looks worthy of the event that we're casting out to all you. What's important to us is when we received this opportunity, we wanted to embrace it, and whatever the challenge is, timing, technical, all of that, embrace it so that we could get Worlds streamed to the community. That was extremely important to us. So
yeah, absolutely. And it is a really big honor to be able to do that, even if we are having to sort of fly by the seat of our pants to get everything figured out. But we are going to do it. We're going to put on a professional production, or as professional as the tech goblins will allow for us, as we have to swat them away. But it'll be a fun new adventure.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, I will not be able to take part in because of work and some other reasons, but it should be really, really cool.
Yeah, and joining us for that, I'd be remiss not to shout this out as well. The two commentators that will be bringing you Worlds will be Davey and Fish Mode, also known as Other Mike from the Underworlds Underground podcast, or the magnificent host of Spent Glory webpage. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some really cool blog content over there. If you haven't checked out any of his stuff for the new edition, by all means, go do that. Otherwise, other things to shout out for the community. There's been a ton of content, as is to be expected. Lots of podcast episodes, YouTube videos, battle reports. If you want anything to do with the new edition, you can probably find some sort of version of it that is to your media preference. reading, listening, or watching, or some combination of the three. One other thing that I think is deserving of a huge shout out is our community deck building website, Underworlds DB, was recently updated to include the new decks and the 2 warbands from the core box. And that's already a pretty great feat considering how short of a time the general community has had with images of the cards. But as of yesterday, when all of these warbands dropped, the deck builder was updated for all those warbands. So a very quick turnaround, really, really awesome thing to be able to do for the community. So if you haven't checked that out, and if you haven't given a shout out to Mcrat, I'm 100%. I don't know which way his username is pronounced, but I'm going with Mcrat. It is a real labor of love there to be able to do something like that for the community. So huge props.
Absolutely. I think that M stands either for Madman or Magnificent. One of the two.
Perhaps both. Who are we to judge? But as I said, we are here today to just give you a quick rundown of everything that is coming out with this digital drop. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's 13 warbands, which we knew were going to be getting digital releases. But there were a few other things that snuck in here that we can just quickly mention before talking stats and things. First off, I just want to address something of an elephant in the room, in that the communication from some of the previous articles around what was going to happen to all the other warbands that were not included in the original competitive legal warbands was less than clear. And so I think it is fair to say having all of those warbands end up with just generic Grand Alliance War Scrolls was not what people were hoping for, and very much understand that. So I'm sorry for anyone whose favorite warband is now sort of stuck behind a generic War Scroll, but it is one of those things where there's so much coming out right now that we knew we weren't going to get everything, and so in some ways it's really just a failure of communication. So I would hope that everyone can take a minute with this, let GW hear your feedback, and then embrace all the cool stuff that we've got as we continue forward. And hopefully you'll see some of those warbands with flavor that you loved come back bigger and better than they ever were in their hopefully to come new editions.
Yeah. To add to that real quick, I'm amongst those who feel that the news was mishandled by GW. And like, I think that's unfortunate. I guess what I wanted to say is I think it's a shame because by setting the bar so high unprompted, they changed the conversation from what could easily have been, look at all the cool stuff we're getting included at launch, to look at how much less we're getting than what we were led to believe.
Yeah.
And that's a shame because we're getting 31 warbands in a short span from launch. We're getting we have the next 2 teased, and we have 2 new decks on the way. So we're going to have like a 6-deck, 33 warband starting point for a new edition. That seems incredible to me. Like that number is way higher than I could have ever imagined. So it's a shame that the communication led us to this point that created disappointment and frustration.
Absolutely.
And I think it's understandable, for people to be experiencing that. So I'm hopeful that it's kind of like, hey, we're giving you something to play with these for now, like just so that you can continue to use the models that you have. But hey, like rules are coming down the road. That's at least where my hope is. Like we have the new ones, like the 13 that we're reviewing today. And there's nothing saying that they can't add more downloads or more Grand Alliance boxes down the road. I think it's just we'll start at 33.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I totally agree. Very well said. And I think to your point, the door is certainly open. I am also hopeful. I don't expect that we'll see everything get remade, or at least not anytime soon, but I think we'll see some amount of things come back. And so,
yeah, Brian's been educating me on how savage orcs aren't in Age of Sigmar anymore. They're in Old World. If I'm getting this correct. So he's like, I wouldn't ever anticipate Mad Mob coming back for you, Skyler.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
well, why don't you just stomp on my heart, Brian?
Yeah.
But it's a fair thing, just to try and keep expectations in check. So we'll see what the future holds. Regardless, I'm excited. I think everything that we've seen so far in this edition has been pretty exciting. There's been bumps, as there are with everything, and that's nothing new, but I'm generally very excited.
Me too. And I guess, dear listener, if we're breaking the news to you and you're like, wait, what the topic of conversation here? I think Phil and I, we're not planning on really diving into these generic War Scrolls today, but to paint the picture, if there is a warband from first edition that isn't amongst the 29, because of the 33-4 are brand new warbands, right?
Yeah.
So of the 29 that are receiving revised rules for the new edition, the other remainder of that 58 warbands, so that would be what, another 29? Oh, is it half? Wow. I didn't even realize that. The other 29, they received fighter cards, which you can go take a look at on the download section of Warhammer Community. There's fighter cards there for you, and then you can pick between one of two War Scrolls that are generic for that Grand Alliance to pair with that fighter, or that warband. So each Grand Alliance getting two generic ones that you could choose to swap in with your old models. That way you still have something to play. It is a legacy, or legends, I think is the term. So you can't play them at tournaments, but there's nothing stopping you from giving them a go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can just leave that there. That's it. It's a big shift, but it is what it is, and hopefully there's actually some fun stuff that can be done with those War Scrolls. I haven't taken a look at them too closely yet, just because we've got a lot of other things to think about. So working through everything, we're chewing through a big pile of stuff. The couple other things just to quickly mention: the core rulebook as a PDF was made available with all of these as well. So if you want a digital copy of the core rulebook, you can go download that now.
Love that immensely.
Yep. Very helpful if you're trying to find a specific rule quickly on the fly while you're playing a game with a friend. And then there's also two other documents. There is a companion to organized play, and there is a tournament sort of guidelines packet. So the distinction there being organized play is like, hey, you're running a local league and here's, prize kits or whatever. Tournament pack is more like, hey, you're going to a grand clash, here's what to expect. Yeah.
And to expand upon both of those just a little, the organized play is where you're going to find like your formal rivals rules for like a rivals event that you'd attend. Same for Nemesis. They're less than a page, really, frankly. They're just telling you what warbands you can bring, what decks are currently legal. They're what you think. And the I Spy detail in here, the thing that has me going, it's tell me more, please, is this sentence here under boards that are legal. The game boards from the following seasons, it's going to list Embergard here, including alternate art game boards found in organized play packs, can be used in this format. What?
Same board, different printing. What?
I'll tell you what. I hope that there is more than one game board in these organized play kits, because everybody's going to want them. I know I immediately want one.
Yeah.
And I want one more than I've ever wanted a glass trophy before.
Fair. It's really cool. It's a different sort of take on doing organized play kits. So Certainly interested to get more details, but for right now, that little tease is all we've got.
Yep. And I guess to expand on the other thing, the tournament companion, like you said, if you're going to a Grand Clash, this is a great document to read. It is a guidelines document for you as a player and for the tournament organizer as well. So they can adopt any amount of these recommendations for their event. It kind of gives some, like, from the Warhammer Design Studio recommendations to you, the tournament organizer, as to how you might handle concessions, calling a judge, tiebreakers, you name it. And it's a good read as a player too. And I think what I'd like to highlight simply is that they take time to put in the philosophy, like, hey, like, here's why we landed on this. And it's all heavily in the spirit of Warhammer, in the spirit of enjoying this hobby with other individuals and focusing on that, and like the shared experiences that you're going to have together, instead of, like, say, the overall winner. Like, winning is its own reward for that individual, but majority of the people there aren't going to be that one individual. And so that's like something that we're still all engaging in and finding to be special, and that should be celebrated and should be the focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've listened to our show for a while, you probably know that we are all about that ethos. We just really want to promote community and having fun with other folks who enjoy this game. So 100% behind that. And it's really cool for GW to sort of lead with the why there. So,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Ethos is a great word, by the way.
Yeah.
Every time you say it, I'm always like, oh, right. That's so succinct. That's apt. I need to add that to my lexicon. And I forget to.
Yeah. All right. So we have covered a decent amount already. Let's dive into these warbands. As I said, there are 13 of these. We are not going to be doing a deep dive here. This is just going to be sort of like read them down and give our first impressions, because there's kind of a lot to chew through. So we're going to start with order. And first up, we will do Farstriders, because why not? The OGs. Well, not quite the OGs, but close enough. Season 1.
The chonky plastic.
Yeah, chonky. So these guys, we're told for each of these warbands what their supposed archetype is, and these guys are supposed to be flex. So 3-fighter flex warband. Let's see what they've got to maybe help them do that. For an Inspire condition, they have immediately after a friendly fighter's second attack in the same phase and a different weapon was picked for those attacks, inspire that fighter. This is exactly the same as what it was from their re-release from last edition, which happened fairly recently.
Yeah. I liked it there. I imagine I like it here. They each have a melee and ranged profile, so they've got the tools built in, of course, on each fighter to get here. But one of the things I've always liked about this Inspire condition is it promotes bringing weapons along as well.
Yeah, good point.
Yep.
Yeah. In terms of benefit for their inspiration, so they are all sporting the sort of standard now Stormcast profile, which is 3 move, 1 block, 5 wounds. That 5 wounds is pretty substantial.
5 wounds is so much.
It means Stormcast are not going down in anything less than 2 hits, pretty much.
Yeah.
When they inspire, they really don't gain anything in terms of base stats. It's all about like added accuracy or extra damage. In this case, in the form of Grievous. Eagle Eye picks up Grievous on his melee attack, but it's mostly added accuracy. So they start out pretty solid, and they don't necessarily need to inspire. I mean, nobody's going to be upset about getting inspired, but like you don't have to chase it. So in that way, you can kind of pick and choose who you want to put in sort of the harm's way of needing to make a melee attack. Any other thoughts about their Inspire?
Um, no. I think that well does it. It's the first time I've seen a fighter inspire to have two weapon abilities. I guess I'll call that out. So Eagle Eye like starts with brutal on their axe there, their melee.
Yeah.
But when they inspire, they gain Grievous alongside it. So it's the first time I've seen where like that is as that fighter is making that attack action before they roll those dice, they're going to have to say, hey, I would like to use Grievous right now, or I would like to use Brutal right now, because not both are happening in the new
Right.
rule set.
Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't actually end up being super common. I think it'll be one of those things that people maybe forget about when they're in the middle of a big tournament, and then somebody will be like, whoa, 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 you didn't declare what you were doing. And then it, like, people will get to that point where they're like, technically you had to declare your war weapon ability or whatever, because people are hedging and trying to get every advantage. And I don't want there to be a lot of that. So I'm hoping that it's like, it's rare enough that when you need to do it.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here. All right, so if you're against somebody, I don't even care what level of tournament this is, and somebody's throwing an attack at you that has a weapon ability associated with it, do not make an assumption that they didn't want to use a weapon ability. Instead, if they're fast and they roll the dice, say, hey, like, did you want to use a weapon ability with that?
Well,
and then go, when they're like, oh my gosh, I really wanted to, be like, okay, like pick, but like, please re-roll. Right.
yes,
Like that's,
of course.
I think that's the way to handle it, is like, obviously there's known information with the roll in play, but like they wanted to use a weapon ability.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really lame to be like, I'm sorry, sir, but you forgot to declare that before you threw your dice.
100%. I should not be assuming things that I know about how gamers can be. You are correct, Skyler. 100%. Don't be that person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's out there. Like it's gaining every advantage you can. I think our community is really good about this stuff in general, and that is what I would like to project into the world.
Absolutely, absolutely, 100% agree. So they have 4 abilities here. One of them is repeatable. The rest are all once per game. Just double checking that none of them are once per something else. They are all once per game. So first thing here is called Vanguard. There's a surge ability. Use this immediately after an inspired, vulnerable friendly fighter in enemy territory used a core ability. There's a lot going on there. You get to pick one of 2 things. You can either uninspire and heal that fighter, and for the rest of the battle round, the fighter cannot be healed or inspired. Or you can pick an enemy fighter within 3 hexes of the fighter and roll a number of attack dice equal to the battle round, and on a roll of a hammer or a crit, inflict 1 damage on that fighter.
Wow. That's fascinating. So I like both parts of this. And I guess this would be the only ability that's not a once per game.
Yep.
And so anytime this is true, fighter in enemy territory used a core ability. So my read on that is the fighter, well, I can't tell right out of the gate. I can't tell if that would be satisfied by a charge like into enemy territory, or if I'd have to start the core ability in enemy territory. So that kind of throws a wrench in this right away for me. Like on which I think on my read, like as long as you've ended the core ability in enemy territory, that's fine.
Yeah, that'd be my take as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, me too. And then vulnerable, like is already the heavier ask in that picture. So
yeah,
that's one of the reasons why I'd lean towards that read. But I think, it reads pretty clearly that as long as after the core ability, you're in enemy territory, you're vulnerable. That's a lot. Uninspire and heal, like that's like now you're no longer on the edge of death. And then if you can combine that with a healing potion, that could be 1 or 2 heal if you're the underdog. Like all of a sudden you can go from almost dead to almost full health.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. And then I like that this like Raptor Strike, as when I played Age of Sigmar Champions, that card game, I began to know this type of Stormcast unit as or like by that like crossbow bolter, and there was a card in that game that was Raptor Strike, and it was essentially just doing a damage. Might have even been a couple of damage. Yeah, so this Raptor Strike ability, I think it's fun, like that you're vulnerable, you're in enemy territory, and I like that. Even though it's a ping, it's locked behind all of these conditions and a dice roll, and I think there should be no guilt in feeling or in that feeling if you're able to use this ability to actually take somebody down. I think it's cool.
Yeah, 100% that like this should come up pretty rarely, and so if you get to do it, like enjoy it, because it's probably going to be one of those like, oh man, like maybe once in every like 5 games or something you're able to manufacture a really cool use of this, whereas I would think in most games like maybe you get there but you're like, I'm putting 1 damage on someone. That's always useful, but it's not like swinging the game for me. So neat ability, has some flexibility. I like it. Next ability, also Surge, is called Ranger Elite. You use this immediately after your action step. Push each friendly fighter a number of hexes equal to the battle round. Equal to the battle round. Those pushes must end in enemy territory. You can only use this ability once per game. Well, goodness. Thankfully, it's only once per game because, my gosh, a multi-push is already very, very good. Even with the caveat that it has to end in enemy territory.
So reading this like harkens back to a card, I think it was in Toxic Terrors. No, either way, a card from the previous game where like you could push 2 fighters, and they each, after each push, they had to end in enemy territory, and like if you were in enemy territory, that was wherever you wanted it to be. And that makes me swing their identity more so towards like strike, because that feels like what we used to refer to as invading aggro. And I mean, up to 3 pushes, Phil, and up to 3 apiece. Like,
yeah, I know, right?
This is wild. I love
it. I like that if you hold on to this ability till the end of the game, you probably have a push for 3 with 1 or 2 fighters, which is huge. And if you need to use it early just to like get a couple of guys across the line, you have that option too. So very flexible ability.
Yeah.
We love pushes here. It's not a surprise, but this is a very strong ability. Don't sleep on this. If this was printed as a card, people would be like, that's busted.
That's the type of ability I want to see on War Scrolls. I want people to, or Warbands, to have these like busted feeling unique abilities. Love it.
Yeah, make them stand out, make them feel powerful, because this is sort of replacing your entire Warband deck. To keep us moving, we have Forward the Vanguard as their next ability. Use this immediately after your action step. Pick a friendly fighter that is not in enemy territory and not adjacent to any enemy fighters. That friendly fighter can move. You can only use the ability once per game. Not a lot to say other than free move, which
not a sequence move.
Always really good. There's plenty of things you can do with this. The fact that you can use stuff like this even after you've moved or charged. There's lots of just quick tricks that you can do. And I'm sure your opponent will have to kind of respect that ability to get this move until they see you burn it, because they have to just be like, yep, he can reposition pretty much at any time.
Yeah, I think 2 cool things to say about both of the abilities once per games that we've read so far is they're after your action step. And that's, I think, significant for 2 reasons. One, it allows counterplay. If it was after an action step, like I can do it going into my turn and my opponent can't react to it. But here it's written in such a way where like if I start surrounding someone, they're going to still have their turn, to get around it, unless you went second, and this is your fourth turn, and you're closing out the round.
Yeah.
Then this is huge because I think this warband values going second for these repositions. They like when they go second in a round for these. Not only can it help them with scoring, but it could help them set up that next round and gamble that they'll win choice for the next round.
Yeah. All right, very cool ability. Last one here is Behind Enemy Lines. You use this immediately after your action step. Pick a damaged friendly fighter in enemy territory. Give that fighter a guard token. For folks who haven't actually gotten to play much in the new edition, guard is a big deal now. It helps you stay where you want. There's not really a good way to get around it. You can't like stagger somebody to get rid of it.
Either knockback or even grapple can't handle it, or overrun. It stops overrun.
Yeah. Distraction type effects exist in this edition, but they're not very common. So like having a power card to push someone is not exactly like a guaranteed thing. So very good. And then just that little defensive boost is also very strong. So
yeah, and I would say that's keeping position is what this guard token is generally doing, because they've only got the one defense dice. So it's not, and they're already on shield.
Yep.
So they're gaining the minimum benefit from a guard token defensively. So I think this speaks to this flex identity that they've handed them and said like, hey, we'll give you a tool to like stay firmly put on an objective. And all this positioning can definitely help as well. It feels like invading flex.
Yeah. I kind of like that idea that maybe they can like get into enemy territory and then start trying to like fight for those treasure tokens in
I said it too. Yep.
Treasure tokens in enemy territory. I gotta retrain the brain here. It'll be fun to see them. I do worry a little bit that they are very similar to the Emberwatch, and there's just a lot of overlap here. So I kind of wonder, like, will one of those two things just end up winning out, and that will be the de facto Stormcast Warband? But for now, cool to see them back. I like everything they've got going on. Seem like a strong potential elite warband there.
Yeah. For my League of Legends players out there, you've got a Yasuo and a Yone. Like they've developed a second Yasuo for you to play when you're not playing your main.
Get your reskin version of your main.
Yeah. Just to highlight that anecdote for others in short order, that was the most popular character in the game, and a decision was made to give those players, because that was the only thing they wanted to play, to give those players a second champion and to try to create a second champion for them to be able to play, so that if in that game, like somebody on the other team can pick your character or ban your character. So if they were picked or banned, you had a fallback. Maybe a pretty far leap of a comparison point, but it's where my brain went. So here we are.
Sure. Well,
on to the next.
I'm sure there's lots of League of Legends players. I know it's very popular. Yes, the next warband we are going to cover will be Brethren of the Bolt, these weirdo zealots. We'll just start with their Inspire condition here. Each friendly fighter starts the game inspired, so same as they used to. Immediately after an action step in which a friendly fighter was a conducting fighter, inspire that fighter, which again is also the same as what they were in last edition. And then they have an uninspire clause, which is different than most warbands, and says immediately after a friendly fighter's successful attack, uninspire that friendly fighter. So you are constantly charging and discharging the human capacitors here. They have a lot of fighters. This is a 5-fighter warband. In terms of inspiration, they do actually pick up a decent amount, but most of them are sticking at the same defense value. They have relatively low health. Most of them
Yeah.
are 2 or 3. So I think you're probably wanting to prioritize like re-inspiring the fighters who hit the hardest.
I think this warband looks fascinating. All like strictly around what we've read so far and their stats, because they're all starting inspired, right?
Yep.
So on their inspired sides, they're all hitting for 2 damage, and they're all fairly accurate. So you have what feels like this power up front in a game that's going to like spark out, right? Like, so you're going to feel the brunt potentially of all of these 2 damage accurate fighters trying to sink those attacks through. And then uninspiring to only 1 damage and less accuracy. And then struggling or not struggling, but like puzzling out how to re-inspire those fighters and get them back to that accuracy and damage. It's fascinating, especially with the low defense and low health.
Absolutely. And I didn't say, but this is one of the warbands that's called out as being mastery. I think that makes perfect sense. There's sort of a lot going on here. It's different than just any one of the other styles of play. It's like you really have to manage this separate thing. And that separate thing is called holy capacitors. The wording on this is super awkward, but you subtract 1 from the distance between a friendly attacker and their target for each friendly fighter between the attacker and the target. Those friendly fighters are conducting. So essentially, you get to increase the range of your attacks as long as there are friendly fighters between the attacker and the target. So like for every one of them, you get to add 1 to your range. I don't know why they talk about it as subtracting the 1 from the distance, because
I can answer that, but it is awkward. I'll give you that. It's so that a range 1 attack that's passing through people still gets the count
a melee
as a range 1 attack. Yeah, so as a melee for melee benefits sake.
Yeah. That's you're right. That is the reason I do remember that even from last edition, where it was like, it's because we want upgrades that apply only to these types of attacks to work. Really interesting ability. Really kind of gives you as the player a lot of flexibility into what you want to do. There's probably, this would be a really good warband to have a deeper dive with a blog article about it, to like give diagrams of what you could be doing, because I think trying to talk about it is probably not going to quite do the correct service to everything that is possible.
I kind of wish, like with something like this, GW, if you're listening, that on the back there would be a diagram, because it doesn't need to be on the front, like and take up like all that space. Like this is a pretty chocked full war scroll, so there isn't really room for a diagram here. But on the back, like just kind of an example diagram that shows people how this happens. And that way you can reference it once with your opponent and say like, yeah, here's the shenanigans I'm gonna be up to. Oh, okay, like I understand, because I can literally see it here. Flip it back over, done.
Like in the core box, they have these reference cards that are like, this is how you set up the boards. They could just have one of these along with their fighter cards.
Absolutely.
That would probably work well too, because I actually like that they have space for like the lore and stuff on the back of the war scrolls. So
I like your call it better.
You know what? Fair game to take our ideas, GW. They're all yours. In terms of actual abilities that they have that are like the once per game type things. They have, the first one is called Fulminating Hymn. You will pick one of the following abilities at the start of the combat phase. Well, there are 2 or more friendly fighters. Each fighter can use that ability. So I guess before we even get into that, what this is saying, the beginning of a combat phase. So that is in a battle round, you have a combat phase and a scoring phase. And so at the beginning of that, before anybody does anything, you pick an ability, and then while you have 2 or more friendly fighters, you can use it. So regardless of whether you can use it, you still pick an ability. So kind of odd, but
yeah. I mean, if they ever print a generic raise card,
oh,
you might be
sure,
able to
yeah.
raise somebody back in and get like this will
Yeah, still
thing that you chose.
exists,
Yep.
but yeah. Okay. So we've got Charged Aura. Friendly fighters cannot be flanked. It's a decent defense boost, I suppose. Reckless Abandon. Each time a friendly fighter would be given a charge token, you can inflict 1 damage on that fighter instead of giving them a charge token.
Ooh,
Wow.
interesting.
Okay. And then Faithful Dynamos. Friendly fighters' weapons have stagger.
Yeah,
I gotta say, I think I'm going with Reckless Abandon most of the time.
Yeah, I think, man, I could see Faithful Dynamos as the thing that like you're kind of leading off with, and then from there on, I would be heavily tempted into Reckless Abandon. I think Charged Aura, is going to be very niche.
Agreed. Yeah, you'll know when you want it. If there's a bunch of fighters coming to you and you know you're going to be getting flanked, then you can take that. But otherwise, it's one of the other two.
Yeah. So like this is all the passive of this Warband. So we're about to get into the once per games that they have. They have 3 of those. But to kind of just summarize so far, like this is a warband that starts inspired. They have narratively this lightning charge that they're holding on, and it's kind of religious. And when they successfully attack, not just attack, but successfully attack, they loose that charge out from themselves, and then they uninspire. And then they can chain. So it's such an interesting picture. Like they can chain through each other. Like they are each holy capacitors and can extend the range of these attacks and have this lightning shooting through them. So not only do they have all that going on, but they then at the beginning of each round get to pick one of these hymns. So you can really see this like mastery picture come into play here, where they're playing the game differently all around.
Yeah, very, very different. When we get to those abilities that they will be using, the first one is Crackling Burst. This can be used in a power step. Pick a friendly fighter. That fighter moves. This is a once per game. And just no caveats. Just pick a fighter. They get to make a move. They're all speed 3, so keep that in mind. But like we said with Farstriders, free moves. Always good.
Yeah.
Not a lot more to say there. Heaven's Charge is the next one. You use this immediately after your action step. You can pick a friendly fighter, uninspire that fighter, then inflict 1 damage on an adjacent enemy fighter. Yeah, just a ping, but you have to be inspired to be able to use it.
All right. I'm down with restrictions on pings.
Yes, and I think we've seen a lot of restrictions on pings so far in this edition, which is a nice change up. Agreed. I suppose where I would probably see this most frequently being used is that you could make an attack through friendly fighters to hit someone that would inspire those fighters, and then you should be able to discharge, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. Because it doesn't have to be the fighter that just made the action, right?
Yeah. I was just checking the timing for when they inspire, and I guess the inspire is immediately after an action step, and Heaven's Charge is immediately after your action step, so they are in the same window. So I guess
I think you can sequence these. I think this might be a worthwhile time to say that I think clarification will come on sequencing. It's a little iffy because it's like covered in 2 pages in the rulebook, one on page 9 and one on page 22, and it's hard to resolve the 2 against each other.
Yes.
But if you're able to sequence these, which you may be able to do once we get the clarification, it's what I'm going to assume at this time. You could first do your inspire and then do your Heaven's Charge, and that seems cool.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't work that way, where you have to already be inspired because they're in the same window, like I'm perfectly fine with that. I think this is still an effective thing to be able to do. So
yeah.
Cool ability. Final one here is Coruscating Revival. You use this immediately after your action step. You can pick a friendly fighter that was conducting during that step. So I suppose they could still be, or they could... Oh no, conducting is when someone attacks through you. Then you can heal that fighter. So basically you shoot lightning through your friend, and because they got shot with lightning, they get healed.
Yeah, and I think this is especially important ability to have if you're going to be taking advantage of reckless abandon.
Oh yeah, yep.
So I like it in combination there. But oh boy, mastery is apt.
Yeah, there's so much going on here. I don't even really want to speculate as to what you'd even want to do with these guys. There's just a whole lot there. Should be fun one to dig into, like for folks who are interested, which I think is you. But
it is. This is at the top of my short list. I haven't looked at all of these 13 yet, but I picked and chose a few that I was excited to take a look at. This was one of them, and I anticipate I'll be playing this quite a bit.
Yeah, very cool. So we should be able to give folks a further, more in-depth report once we have some experience with them. They are very, very interesting. How about we move things along to Iron Soul's Condemners?
Yeah, and I'll give you a reading break here.
Sure.
All right. To jump into the Condemners, we have for our Inspire, immediately after making an attack roll or save roll for a friendly fighter, if that roll included any crits, inspire that fighter. So again, we're seeing a direct translation on how they inspire from their previous edition.
Yeah. Never a super reliable one, but sometimes a very good one. And it looks like they do pick up some decent stats. Iron Soul and Tavian both gain an additional block when they inspire.
Yeah. And Brodus with a speed boost when he inspires.
Yeah, speed boost and an accuracy boost alongside his Grievous 2 damage attack. So
he coming.
He coming. Yeah, he got that big two-handed hammer, and he is gonna use it. On the whole, I mean, this warband has some big chunky stats. So, yeah, you know what they're trying to do. GW tells us they're trying to flex, but I, again, would be a little unsure of that. But let's see.
Let's take a look. I think I know why they feel they flex, and I think it's this next bit here. So, Bulwark against the Dark. Friendly fighters with no move and or charge tokens cannot be driven back.
Okay.
So I think that's probably it. That's pretty big. So if these guys get onto a treasure token, caught myself there.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to peel them off from round to round if they decide to make that their home.
Yeah. And with just 3, sometimes that'll be difficult, but not being able to be driven back, that certainly helps.
Yeah, and I think we definitely wouldn't ever accuse this warband of being taken hold because sure, they can hunker down on these, but like if they're going to try to attack you back, like they've got range 1, so they're going to have to come off of that. I anticipate they're going to want to. So we got Punishing Blow here of the first of 3 once per game abilities for them. Use this immediately after you pick a weapon as part of an attack by a friendly Brodus. The weapon has plus X attack dice, where X is equal to the battle round.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're cranking up that accuracy for Brodus. All right.
Yeah.
And then Etherically Charged Shield. Use this immediately after your opponent picks a weapon. So once again, as part of an attack that targets a friendly shield etheric. Okay, so first one was we're dealing the attack here. Etherically Charged Shield is they're dealing the attack to us, and Iron Soul or Tavian can use this. Weapon abilities cannot be selected for that attack. That's incumbent on you. So you can turn off Grievous, Cleave. Those are probably going to be the 2 that you really want to turn off. But all the other ones are turned off as well.
Yeah.
For that one attack.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be those times where you're like, I know that I need to survive this. Um, Time to go full tank mode and just hope that they don't roll a million successes here.
Yep. And then Etherically Charged Maul. Use this immediately after you pick a weapon as part of an attack by a friendly shield Etheric. So again, this is Iron Soul and Tavian. That weapon has +1 range for that attack. You can use this once per game. Able to crank that range 1 3 hammer 2 damage attack. They both have it up to range 2 once per game. That's not nothing. That's that's an accurate smack to the face there.
Yeah, it's very useful. There will be times where you're like, I need to hold this position and I'm going to get some extra reach just so that I can actually get to somebody. And then other times it'll be like, I really need to make this attack, but I'm 1 hex too far away, so we'll pop this so that I can make that melee attack from range 2. All of this is very straightforward. Not a whole lot to really digest. And in some ways, that's, I think, perfectly fine.
I think that's fine for them. This is going to be an easier warband to like get into and like understand in full. And I think what is interesting from a balance standpoint with the idea of them like not being immovable is if they don't ever hit their crit, if they're not seeking those attacks and they're just hunkering down, then you can continue to punish them on 1 shield defense, and they're going to have a hard time, probability wise, getting that crit and inspiring. So I think they really got to go out there and try to get their attacks until they inspire.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's kind of the where the interest lies in them as a hold function, I suppose.
Absolutely. An interesting enough warband. I probably won't be playing them. They're just not my style, but I'm sure Stormcast fans will be happy to have another choice.
Yeah. All right. So up next we have the Sirenized Razors. I can read this one down for us again. So we have this is Elvish. This is Ideneth. This is I feel like I feel qualified.
Yeah, here we go.
This down. Inspire a number of friendly fighters equal to the battle round at the beginning of each combat phase. That's fascinating. They also have an uninspire here at the start of the round. Uninspire each friendly fighter. So
got it.
At the start, so inspire a number at the beginning of each combat phase. Okay, so yeah, you're not carrying any inspires over here.
Yep.
And round 1, you'll be able to choose one of these fighters to be inspired. Round 2, 2, 3, 3. But what that means, interestingly enough, is without like card intervention here, you're never getting all 4 of them inspired together at once if they were all alive to be so.
Yeah. I think this is probably going to be one of those warbands where you kind of have to play the inspires to your opponent, where you'll be like, oh, I need this time, so I'm going to go ahead and inspire this fighter, or I know I'm going to need this thing, so I'm going to inspire this fighter, which is cool. That sort of rewards some situational knowledge and sort of being able to plan for how you need to approach different matchups. I like that.
I do too.
In terms of what they gain while inspired, looks like fairly modest bonuses, mostly accuracy.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest 2 notes to call out here, because the only one that gains defense is Saphir, so that's worth calling out.
Yep.
Who also gets grapple. We haven't seen that much yet. I'm really excited about that ability. I just think it's cool. That's when they drive back, they can do a push in any direction instead of necessarily having to push you away.
Yeah.
That's cool. And Alethir. So Alethir starts the game with a range 1 and range 2. And we've seen this in the new edition. it seems to be, hey, we want this person to have a range 2 attack, but we don't want that to deal too much damage. So we're going to give them both a range 1 and a range 2. The range 1 will deal the damage. The range 2 will be there for a reliable 1 damage, right? But
Yep.
when Alethir inspires here, those are both melee classifications. So let's go ahead and wrap them into one here. We don't need a range 1 and a range 2 on this inspired side, because we're going to say, hey, at range 1 or 2, you have 3 hammers, 2 damage, and brutal. And so he's the only fighter that gets up to 2 damage at range. And he's also the one that's worth 1 glory, which is interesting, because I think he's going to be a go-to inspire, but he's going to be the least attractive target.
Interesting. Yeah, fun little tools. They can twist the different knobs of how they want to balance the warbands by using that bounty characteristic in different ways.
Agree. So we have the signature Hammer Tide. It has a Underworld skull next to it. Now, this Underworld skull, when you see it on a card or a war scroll, because a war scroll is a card, it means core ability. So as a core ability, so something you could do as an action step item is you can use this ability if a friendly leader with no charge tokens is on the battlefield. Draw a straight line from Sirenized Hex in any direction. The first time this line crosses an enemy fighter, inflict 1 damage on that enemy fighter and give that fighter a stagger token. The line immediately ends if it crosses a blocked hex. Interesting.
Yeah, small change from last edition.
Yeah. This is so we used to have a like scatter token that like very clearly like communicated to you like center of hex. And that's kind of missing here. So I imagine the intent is the same, but for those wondering, like, how do I draw a straight line from the hex? I guarantee you it's from center of hex to center of hex somewhere. Going or using the 6 sides of your hexagon as your line outward. Like, you can't just like point to another hex somewhere and draw a straight line through like to it, like you would with line of sight.
Yeah,
I'm sure what it's trying to communicate here is the 6 sides of a hexagon. You're going out from those in a straight line, because that's what it was before. But what it wasn't before is this interesting. The line immediately ends if it crosses a blocked hex, and I like that addition quite a bit.
Yeah, there are quite a few less blocked hexes in this edition, so being able to hide is going to not be as simple, but having the ability to hide at all is certainly nice. It was not a possibility in the previous edition, so I welcome this change wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing peekaboo around to the block hex with Tyler and I at some point. Yep.
She's reloading.
Oof. So we have 3 other abilities on the War Scroll here. Only one of them is once per game. So I'm going to kick off with that one here. It's called Soul Harvest. Use this in a power step. Pick an inspired enemy fighter. Then your opponent must pick one of the following. Uninspire that fighter, or you can draw power cards equal to the battle round. You can only use this once per game. Interesting. Uninspire that fighter, or you can draw power cards equal to the battle round. So I'm having to read this like 2-3 times, Phil. Am I missing something? I think I pick uninspire that fighter, right? Like, why would I ever pick let you draw?
I would imagine the only reason would be if you think that having your fighter inspired is so important to your game plan that you can't afford to be uninspired. But I think you're right. I think there's very few scenarios where you're going to pick, oh yeah, draw, 3 power cards. That'll be fine.
Okay. Also, I read it wrong, and it became more of a choice for me once I finally read it the third time. I read it, pick an inspired friendly fighter, and I was like, why?
Oh, yeah.
Are we asking the opponent
Nope.
about this? Nope, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
You're picking an enemy fighter, and then you're saying, hey, you
make a bad choice.
Enemy fighter. Yeah. what would you like? That feels very Ideneth. From everything I know about them mechanically, they like to hand bad choices over to their opponent. Okay, cool. So then we have Deadly Riposte. Use this immediately after an enemy fighter's failed attack that targeted a friendly thrall. So our thralls are the same as before. That's Alethir and Renglaith. We have a nice rune mark to call that out for you. That thrall's weapons have cleave and ensnare during the next turn while the enemy fighter is the target of an attack. Oh, okay.
Sort of a weird situational accuracy boost.
Yeah, so they have to be targeted. The enemy has to fail the targeted attack, and that emboldens them, I suppose. It's almost like, hey, we're kind of like locked in combat now, and I have the upper hand because you missed.
Yeah. I think it's definitely more of a flavorful thing than it is like Cleveland's solid, don't get me wrong. But this is gonna be one of those weird things where it's just like, oh, is that really what I want? And like, what if they're already charged? Like, it's like, cool, I unlocked this ability that I now can't use.
Sure.
Yeah. So cool flavor. I personally I think it's fine that you can do this any number of times in a game. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I like it though. It's interesting. And like you said, there's kind of play around it. Like if I've charged, my opponent doesn't have to worry about the Deadly Riposte here.
Yeah.
So, all right. So our final thing is Phantasmal Ink. I'm just going to say right away, I'm happy to see some sort of inking on this War Scroll because that felt very present on their previous iteration. So use this immediately after an enemy fighter's failed attack that targeted a friendly Sephiroth. How could you?
Yeah.
Push Sephiroth a number of hexes equal to the battle round. Okay. This is very similar to what it was before. And I think each iteration has had like its advantages. Like you could pop around anywhere along the midline before, but here it's a number of hexes to the battle round. So that could be, like far off into a territory, up to 3 hexes. So I think I kind of actually like this iteration of it better at first.
There will certainly be situations where this version is better. I think the part that I always found a little punishing was like if I attack and I wanted to, have a follow-up to my attack. Well, I have no idea where Sephiroth's going. So I probably am losing that ability to do so because he's suddenly going to be way outside of my range. There was just all sorts of weird stuff. And it was like almost impossible to keep him, nailed down. And there were situations where he would teleport, you'd make your attack, you'd miss, he'd teleport away, and now you're not even in range to try and like continue attacking. So it was just like, this is really annoying. Whereas here, I think most of the time it'll be 1 or 2 hexes. And while that's good, I think it stops the like complete shutdown plays that were possible in the old edition.
Sure. It used to stagger too. I'm kind of surprised not to see that here. Yeah. But
I think stagger's a lot stronger than it used to be though.
Yeah.
Just because accuracy is
like completely it's flipped on its head from a concept. Yeah,
absolutely. Rerolls are a big deal now.
I think so too. Cool. Well, I think that kind of rounds us out for these elves here. They've all got 4 health, which I think is of note. That's a health bump up in the budget.
Slightly sturdier elves.
Yep. The thralls before I think we're at 3.
Yes, they were.
Cool. Any final notes on these ones before we move on?
No, not really. I think they retained the flavor. They feel a lot like they did in the previous edition, and I think that's appropriate given that they were not released that long ago.
Agree.
That ends order for us as well. So we are moving on into chaos as we descend into madness here. We will start with the Thriceful Discord, a favorite of a few of our friends on our podcast. So they will inspire immediately after making an attack or save roll that contains no successes, or after a friendly fighter is slain, and then you get to inspire another friendly fighter. So essentially, if you do anything with dice and you completely whiff, you get to pick a different fighter, inspire that fighter. So they all kind of get to laugh at each other as they fail.
Yeah. We don't have the specific triangle of laughter like Vexmore looking at Vash to fail, and so each of them looking at specifically one other. But I think it's well captured here still, like well translated over. It's the same essence.
It really should help to smooth out some of the weird situations where you're just like, man, I really wish this fighter would mess up now so that I could inspire this person, but you just didn't have that option, which is kind of funny and on theme, but also a little frustrating.
Yeah, I agree in both regards.
In terms of actually getting inspired, so they all start with 1 defense dice. Or save dice, I guess. That's also one that's going to take me a while. Vashtis and Lasavir both gain 1 save dice. So they go from 1 dodge to 2. Vexmore is still on 1, but Vexmore has 5 wounds, or 5 health. And so Vexmore is probably the one that I'm least interested in inspiring. Which is a little odd because Vexmore is your leader, but otherwise pretty solid attack profiles. They gain some damage on inspiration and a little accuracy for Lasavir. So sort of pick what you need and go ahead and grab it.
Yeah, and just like our last tentacled fighter, flying is on Vashtis.
Yeah.
So that's retained as well. It's weird. I don't understand it, but
yeah. There's also a weird curved arrow rune mark on 2 of our fighters as well, which is Vashtis and Lasavir.
Phil, what does that mean?
They have an ability called evasive. So an evasive fighter, it says, immediately before damage is inflicted on an evasive fighter, you can roll an attack dice, and on a hammer or a crit, you will subtract 1 from the damage inflicted. So kind of odd that they didn't just tie this into their defense rolls, but I guess they wanted to make it a 50-50 without like messing with their defense dice in any way. I don't know. I think that's going to be a really annoying ability, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. Huh. I'm on board.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. They both have 4 wounds, so having the ability to reduce damage is pretty significant. Other than that, we also have an indolent fighter. This is Vexmore, who is indolent. And it says that Vexmore's weapons have +1 attack dice and Grievous, while that fighter has no move or charge tokens.
So there it is.
Yeah, so if he's being lazy...
Now I'm interested in inspiring him because he goes from 1 dice to 2
and
when
then he gets another 1.
And indolent is hanging out here, making that actually really 2 to 3. And with an extra damage on top of it. So, range 2, 3 damage attack. I think that's going to be really rare in this edition. So,
agreed.
Oh boy, all of a sudden Vexmore got a lot more interesting.
Yeah, very very fun there. Um, Watch out if you get close to him. He can just hang out there. I fully expect people to take advantage of pushes to get him positioned and start smacking people.
Agree.
Then we have Wicked Slice. It's one of their. No, it is not restricted as to how many times it can be used. So it says immediately after an attack made by a friendly Lassevier. So it only works with Lassevier. And Lassevier is a melee range 1 fighter only. You pick an enemy fighter that is not vulnerable and within 2 hexes of that fighter, and you can inflict 1 damage on that enemy fighter.
Wow. Whoa, Phil, this is on missed attacks and any attack, like weapons.
Yeah, I see. That is that's really wild. It also, since it just says within 2 hexes, not adjacent or anything like that, you can pick the target because they're within 2 hexes of themselves.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
That's a potent ability.
Yuck. If you didn't want to get pinged in this edition, don't fight Lassevier.
Stay clear of that 5 movement speed missile.
Yeah, sure. And 2 damage base, so like not a slouch either. Wild. That is crazy. I mean, at least you can't use it on vulnerable fighters to like pick them off. So good for that, I guess.
I really appreciate that. I think that's cool.
Yeah. That would have been ridiculous if you could pick people off with this. Man, that is so wild. That, like, we were talking earlier about like, oh, these ping things are kind of cool that you can use once per game, and this is just do it as many times as you want.
Yeah, that says kill Lassevier, kill Lassevier.
Yeah, no joke. All right, well, cool. Lassevier, big upgrade. Next ability is Eldritch Enmity. Once per game, you can use this ability in a power step instead of playing a card. Pick 2 friendly fighters. Push each fighter up to 1 hex. And after each push, both fighters must be further from the other. They do not like each other. I love it. Perfect. That is perfectly on theme, but also not that punishing. You're still getting to push. You just are sort of having to go in diagonals away from each other, but still towards your ultimate destination.
Yeah, we like pushes here. This is fine. Like, this could be totally powerful. You could want both of those pushes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things you could do with a push 2 friendly fighters anywhere on the board, even with this caveat. So very good ability. I like it a lot. I think that's cool. Next, we have Feuding. Again, once per game, you can use this ability immediately after your action step. Pick 1 inspired friendly fighter and 1 uninspired friendly fighter. Uninspire the inspired fighter and inspire the other. All right.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Cool. So I guess if you decide after a little while, you're like, hey, I could actually use to, get the abilities that are on this other fighter. Or maybe if your inspired fighter is close to getting taken out of action, slain, if you will, you would then be able to be like, hey, how about I go ahead and get this other fighter inspired because I know that this inspired fighter is not long for this world.
Yeah. Immediately after your action step, right? So you could also say, hey, you inspired fighter that just took a turn and are now charged. Like, I'm up next.
Good call.
Yeah.
Very cool. Cool. All right. So 3 for 3 on these surge abilities. All very good so far. Last one is Vile Temptations. Is another once per game. In your action step, you can pick an enemy fighter and pick 1 of their equipped upgrades. That upgrade is discarded. Then equip that fighter with an upgrade from your hand whose cost is equal to or less than the discarded upgrade.
Oh, wow.
Oh, boy.
That's mean.
Ugh.
I don't know how I feel about this one. It's gonna happen to me, and I'm gonna get sad.
Yeah, so you're just gonna be like hanging around. You've got your great fortitude, feeling good about life, and then they're just like, "Hey, here's this zero cost, great speed. Have fun."
Yeah. So this is them trying to translate false gifts over,
Absolutely,
right?
100%.
And so the idea of like taking something that's strong to you and turning it into something weak, I assume, right? Or generally speaking, at least not the most needed or niche, thing that you had going for you. Taking a plus save away from you, taking Grievous away from you, taking whatever it is away from you and giving you something less. You'll at least still have that thing and can gain the benefits from that thing. But interesting. Phil, there's an ability on this War Scroll that I don't think slaps.
Yeah, no, they seem real good. I am not looking forward to having to stare down Thricefold for a very long time yet again.
I'll say though that this is what I want out of a War Scroll for a Warband. Like this is awesome. Like there's worry in the new edition that with the fighters really only have stats and rune marks on them, that they're not going to have that character coming through. But here I really feel character for Vexmore and Lassivir.
Yeah.
And Vash just gets to hang out with the evasive rule, which is, adds a little bit of character to her since she's only one of the two fighters that get it. And then all of these abilities are just wild. So this is cool. Like, I really think that like this is a good example of how flavorful and interesting a War Scroll can be. But dang, do I think these guys look phenomenal. Like, yeah. I think we'll be seeing them.
They look strong to me too. And Davey loves them, so good for you, Davey. I don't look forward to facing them too much. All right, so next and final Chaos Warband, we have Spiteclaw Swarm, which came in the Mirrored City box just recently, so it makes sense we'd get them again.
Yeah.
They have their Inspire, same as has always been, except the wording is slightly different. Immediately after resolving a ploy that picked a friendly fighter, inspire that fighter.
Thank you.
The choose keyword is no longer a thing, so it's just any ploy that picks a fighter, they'll get inspired.
This is better. I mean, hunting for that choose keyword before like was both fun and but also like sometimes it felt overly punitive and restrictive.
Yeah, you were like, all right, let me cut down the total card pool that I can use by 10 almost 90% of the card pool. It's just like, yep, and that's gone. Probably not actually, but it was a lot.
I'm gonna embrace chaos, and I'm gonna jump on the mic and read Swarm here.
Sure.
So it is a core ability. Pick a friendly leader to use this ability. So they have to be alive, and you're using this as your action step because it's a core ability. Pick a slain friendly minion, raise that fighter, and place them on an empty starting hex. Then give that fighter a raise token. And if I recall correctly, this is their old condition and not their like revamped one. I think their revamped one was limited to friendly territory.
Possibly. I haven't internalized their new rules enough to know if that is correct or not. But either way,
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that was it. Feel free to correct me. I'm gonna look it up after this anyway, so you'll be an echo in the future. But this is a moment to call something out unfortunate. There is no, and I saw this on Discord, there is no minion rune marks on this Warband. It's definitely a miss. Nobody wrote Swarm and thought, you know what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
Not include minions in this Warband.
Whoops.
So I'm sure the usual suspects are minions, and we'll see this eroded in the near future. For those unfamiliar with who those usual suspects are, those are going to be the festering, hungering, and lurking Skaven. So I'm sure they're just awaiting their rune mark. If you're somebody that I'd get the pleasure of playing a game with, I would just say, hey, treat those three as minions, and let's move on and have fun. But I'm sure it'll come out.
It pretty much has to. Like, it would be wild to have an ability that you just can't use.
Yep.
All right. Well, we do have some rune marks on this warband, and one of those is a new one, and that's for Scheming Pack. You have Friendly Schemers, which is both Spikeclaw and Crook. It says their weapons have critical grievous while the target is flanked or surrounded. Which is what they picked up in the Mirrored City box rules, so they got to keep that. It's fine.
So is flanked or surrounded. So they've got to while the target is flanked or surrounded. Okay. Yep. So if they're able to push friendlies into position, they're also unlocking Crit Grievous, which is a weapon ability that you'll have to choose in that moment. So if you've got another weapon ability, it's between those two. But yeah, no, I don't hate it. I'm glad that they got a good base damage of 2 on their own. So what's interesting is they used to have a weapon identity. Like, this warband used to be about this is before my time, so correct me if I'm wrong. About being weapon caddies ultimately. And I guess where I'm going with this is Scheming Pack doesn't say anything about ranged or melee. So that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, every war band that used the raise mechanic was definitely using weapons to their fullest advantage because they didn't break. And so it was like, hey, this little schmuck suddenly can be coming in with this crazy 3 damage attack or whatever. And doing that over and over again. That is no longer going to be the case. So it'll be interesting. I think they would still benefit from having weapons. Their base attack profiles are not amazing.
No, they're not. Not outside of Spikeclaw and Kirk.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. You're stuck at 1 damage with some Crit Grievous splashed in, but is mostly just you're at 1 and you're hoping to make the best of it. This is supposedly a strike warband too, so I don't quite know how that's going to work out.
Interesting. I guess the idea maybe is the fact that when they get raised, they have 0 bounty, and so like they can really come at you from that point forward. That's when you give them the weapon, is you say, hey, now I have a weapon and I'm not worth bounty.
Sure.
And I've got 5 movement speed.
Yeah, right. I mean, you just cruise missile mode and just see what happens. I don't hate it, but I mean, I don't know. Some of that identity stuff is just like, I don't know. I'd quibble, but what I won't quibble about is that Crick wants to lead this pack. Absolutely.
Well, because he's the bestest.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
Scritch believes that too. So they've got a little bit of something to figure out there. But there is an untimely promotion ability on this war scroll, and it says, while friendly Scritch is slain, Crick is a leader. So he is opportunistic and will take over if his boss gets got. Even if he's the one who got him.
This is this warband must have still been on the editing floor when it got hit to print, because there isn't a fighter named Scritch.
Oh my goodness. No. Yeah, although it is called on the back of the war scroll that he's Scritch Spike.
Is it? Oh, thank goodness. Okay.
They just shorten it on the the one word on the fighter card. So it is still there. It probably should be on the fighter card if they're going to call it out on the war scroll, but it's at least somewhere.
Okay. Thank goodness.
Oof. Not
one more editing pass on these guys.
Batting 1,000 here. Yeah. Let's get to their abilities. Hopefully there's no more typos. So you can use, the first one here, Skitter. You can use this immediately after a friendly fighter adjacent to any friendly fighters is picked to use a core ability. So this will be before the actual ability is used. You push that fighter 1 hex. You can only use this ability once per game.
Awesome.
Sweet. So you could say, hey, I'm going to end up wanting to do something with this fighter, and I'll push them away from their friend, and now I'm in position to do whatever it is I want to do. Fairly straightforward. Basically a restricted version of sidestep.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good with it.
Sweet. Next ability is Justified Paranoia. They have used this immediately after a friendly fighter adjacent to any friendly fighters is picked to use a core ability. Give the fighter a guard token. Okay. Yep. Again, fairly straightforward. I guess with both of these, the fact you have to be adjacent to one of your friendlies beforehand is a little weird. So there is some setup that has to happen here, but
yeah, that's the next one too. That's seems to be something they've chosen to like put in as a motif.
Their identity is that they should be adjacent to each other.
Yeah, I mean, you even see that with Scheming Pack, in a sense, right? Like they're generally going to be adjacent to the same, to the same target.
Yeah, I guess they're like the literal version of swarm aggro. Like they're just going to swarm you.
Yeah, and guard tokens are huge here because you've got fighters on 2 dodge potentially, and that's the best place for guard always.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing to get. It does require some setup though. So
yeah.
So final one here, out of my way, fool things. Use this in a power step. Well, in your power step specifically, pick 2 adjacent friendly fighters, remove those fighters from the battlefield, and then place each of. Okay, this is just confusion.
Yeah. But with only friendly fighters.
Yeah. Why?
Phil,
I don't know what I would do with that.
Chaos is 1 for 2.
Yeah, they put all of the best abilities into 1, and then we're like, I don't know, some rats, they do stuff.
Yeah, I think the first 2 ability, or I would say this last ability is the stinker in particular. Like,
there's use for the other abilities, but I wouldn't say they're like
great.
Yeah. I'm not like ecstatic to have those, but I'm not upset about them. That last one feels like a big miss to me. I don't know. What are you doing with a like only friendly fighter confusion that's actually helping you? If the one fighter was already like on a treasure token or adjacent to an enemy fighter, why do you want to swap their places?
I guess maybe you temporarily had a 1 save fighter on that spot and you want to get a 2 on there.
Yes.
That's my reach.
Yep, there you go. All right. We don't need to dwell on it too much. We still have quite a few warbands to go here, so let's just keep moving and we'll see how those go. We're on to death, and we have our old friends, the Sepulchral Guard.
Absolutely. All right, I'll kick us off here. We have an Inspire. Immediately after giving a friendly fighter a raise token, inspire that fighter. That's as it was before. And after giving friendly fighters 3 or more raise tokens, inspire your leader. Interesting. After giving friendly fighters 3 or more raise tokens, I think it was previously 2, and I think this is saying it's the act of giving, right? So I think like if I lost the same fighter repeatedly, kept bringing them back, I think that would be fine.
I think so.
Yeah.
Seems decent. I mean, they look to be largely the same in terms of their stats.
A big thing that's standing out for me right away. So like there's some movement speed. Nope, sorry. The movement speed is the same as before. Start at 2, go to 3. But what is standing out and what caught me here was the Prince, the Champion, and the Harvester are at 2 health. They were definitely at 3 before.
Oh yeah,
That is weird to me.
That is a big change.
Yeah,
I did miss that. Womp womp.
that's that makes them feel a little less special. Like we have these named characters in these 3,
Yeah.
and then we have the other ones that are just petitioners, right? Like we didn't give them names, we gave them labels to help us remember them a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas here, they've been brought down to petitioner level health. That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I don't want to judge too much before we get into the rest of the War Scroll. What do they got going on?
You know what, Phil? Let's move forward.
Sure.
With forward, the core ability. And this is pick your leader. To use this ability, if they have no charge tokens, pick up to 2 other friendly fighters. Those fighters immediately move. Perfect.
Sure. Yep.
This is
same as they always had.
The classic Warden here. So we good movement efficiency, able to get 2 fighters onto treasure in one go commonly here. So next we have Arise, which is also a core ability. Pick your leader. To use this ability, if they have no charge tokens, pick up to 2 slain friendly fighters. Up to 2. Wow. Raise those fighters and place them on different empty starting hexes in your territory and inflict 1 damage on those fighters. Ooh, wow. All right.
Cool that they get 2 back.
Yeah.
But they'll be coming back vulnerable.
I'm going to have to play against them to really feel these like nuanced changes out. But like previously they were only bringing back 1 unless I think they had an upgrade.
That was an upgrade, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's just rolled in now. But I wouldn't be surprised if rolling this ability onto the War Scroll is partly why our named fellows have lost a health, because we can just bring them back in bulk.
Yeah, probably. And I suppose the change that raised fighters don't give bounty anymore is probably something that they had to fine tune to figure out like what makes sense when these fighters are just going to keep coming back, and then there's not a lot of benefit to taking them out again.
Yeah, I think this is a warband in a weird relationship with supremacy now. They can, they get into position for it pretty quick, but as they lose fighters, they lose the ability to do it altogether. Like if they lose enough fighters that have come back at 0 bounty. So
very odd. Yeah.
So next up here we have there are 3 once per games. These are all surge abilities. We have Grasping Hands. Use this immediately after you pick a target as part of an attack. That target is surrounded for that attack. They had a card like this before. That feels nice. That's a good accuracy boost. You know, you got somebody like the Harvester, or actually any of the petitioners that are throwing 3 swords, and so if they can just say, hey, for this attack instead, let's make that a surrounded target. That increases the accuracy on this attack immensely. From 2/6 to 4/6 of the results there. So that's good.
Yeah, solid. Get people off those tokens.
Absolutely, those are mine. Get off. Relentless Blows is the next one here. Use this immediately after a friendly fighter's failed attack. Pick another friendly fighter. That fighter attacks. That attack must target the same enemy fighter. Whoa. So this is an ability they've kind of always had in one way, shape, or form. But because the Harvester used to have scything, something that isn't in the game anymore, this got really complicated when it used to be the Harvester that could be chosen again. How many attacks does the Harvester then get? And it looks like they've just gone. I almost feel like this is designed for that scenario, which doesn't exist anymore, because now you have to pick a whole nother fighter and they're going to make an attack against the same target. So they got to be within reach.
Yeah, yeah, and they're all range 1, so it's niche, I would say.
Yeah, I almost feel like because they've pulled it onto another fighter that has to make the attack, you could have made this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack, like instead of
just
failed attack.
Make a second attack.
Yeah,
I could see that.
But so it's. I'm sure there'll be situations where you set it up and you're happy to have it. I'm sure there will be situations where you set it up and it never goes off because you made that first attack. So then last here we have Bone Shrapnel. Use this immediately after a friendly fighter is slain by an enemy fighter. If that enemy fighter is not vulnerable, then inflict 1 damage on that enemy fighter. This is one of those cases where I wouldn't have expected the not vulnerable clause. I would have thought that would have been fine. Like,
yeah, you killed me, so now I get to deal a damage to you.
Yeah, you're in full control of this as an opponent.
Yeah.
So I think this could have been ungated.
Yeah, I suppose maybe they figure because you can bring your fighters back so easily, they're like, well, we don't really want.
I guess. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I agree though. It feels a little bit weaker than it needs to be, but like, extra damage for something that's almost assuredly going to happen at some point in the game. I think it's fine. It's not amazing, but I'll take it.
I think their core identity is pretty well intact here. I'll be interested to see them across the table and get to feel that out. I think notably, people familiar will want to hear that the Warden still has access to 3 damage once he inspires. I think that's always been a potent piece of the puzzle. So that's there for him still.
Absolutely. Overall, cool warband, taking hold, doing the death thing.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got the Thorns. Thorns of the Briar Queen, our friendly ghosts. Maybe not so friendly. So, for an inspiration, at the start of your turn, inspire each friendly fighter adjacent to any enemy fighters. That is the same as it was after they got their revamp in the Mirrored City box, which is pretty neat. It looks like...
Oh, wow. They all have 2 dodge all the time.
Yeah. They are just always 2 dodge, so you're not hunting for extra save dice when you're inspiring. Almost... So everybody who is a Chain Rasp has just 2 wounds. So that is of note. And then Varclav and the Briar Queen both have 3. So you have no 4 wound fighters in the warband.
So immediately, Phil, this makes me want to compare them to the other Swarm hold that we just came from, and like the design choices there. And when we have 2 health across all of these Chain Rasps, and we had 2 health across all those Skellies, it's interesting that they're like, hey, these skeletons, they raise, they come back. So 1 guard. Over here, they don't come back, right? So I would have expected to see them at 2 dodge when they inspire, just because that's how I'm used to seeing them. But I feel like they've been given that extra defensive boost simply because if somebody ever punches an attack through, they're probably taking them down, and you can't resurrect them anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've never been able to res these ghosts. But,
yeah. Huh. I don't know. It's one of those weird things because, again, with the math kind of changing with crits, 1 block is actually, on average, slightly better than 2 dodge. But
interesting.
But 2 dodge has a better chance for getting stand fast.
Sure.
So,
which also helps a hold.
Yeah. It helps with hold. It also helps to survive when you're only 2 wounds. So,
yeah.
There's pros and cons. But I agree. I'm a little surprised that everybody just starts on 2 dodge. In terms of things they actually are looking to gain, looks like the Briar Queen gets a pretty significant accuracy boost, switching from 3 swords to 3 smash on both attack profiles.
Oh my gosh!
Or,
as well as a little crit grievous bonus.
Yeah. So she's doing work. It's ready to get smashing. Varklov also gets an increase in accuracy, gains an attack dice. I guess across the board they all get extra movement. So if you need to be a little bit faster, that's a thing to think about. On the whole, the Chain Rasps are not very reliable fighters until they get inspired. And there's a few of them that are on... Oh, maybe they all go to 2 damage?
Looks like they do.
Wow. Okay, cool. So they have some ability to punch above their weight class a little bit. But you do have to be adjacent to get inspired. So some risk reward
lot of risk
there.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of their abilities, they have Soul Warden. This is a core ability you can use once per battle round. You get to pick up to 2 friendly minions, push those fighters up to 2 hexes. Then you can give each of those fighters a charge token. So you can intentionally charge yourself out if you so choose.
This is fascinating to me. This isn't tied to Varklov.
Nope.
Which has been his role previously. And there's been push and pull with, like, do I put him forward and risk the loss of this ability, even though he's always been able to strike well?
Yeah. Yep.
Or, do I hold him back? But there is no such restriction here. Instead, our restriction is once per battle round.
Yeah.
And I'll just say that, like, this is one of those moments where I'm resistant to change, because I just really liked that as his identity and that push pull I described. This is interesting. I'm gonna have to feel this one out.
I think that's totally fair. I don't dislike this. I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to be able to do. I think it's interesting that you have the option to give charge tokens, so you can use this either to just get on feature tokens, or you can use it aggressively if you want the chance to be charged out.
I like that.
I like it. Solid. Their other ability, there's another one that is a carryover from last edition, is Wave of Terror. While a friendly fighter targets an enemy fighter that is adjacent to a different friendly fighter with any charge tokens, the target is surrounded. So they just count as being multiple fighters for the purposes of supports. Solid. Not amazing, but I'll take an accuracy boost. Why not?
Yeah, that can be real big.
Yeah, I mean, you go from swords to now counting
better than hammers. Yeah.
4 of your 6 facings. That's really good. Or getting the queen up to 5 of 6 facings while inspired with 3 dice. That's also very scary.
Yeah.
And then we've got a number of different abilities that are all once per game. Some of these are things that were coming over from their cards that they used to have. So first is Stare of Death. You use this in your power step. You pick an enemy fighter within 2 hexes of a friendly fighter. That fighter cannot charge in the next turn. You can only use this once per game. It's a cool ability, really good. Situationally, can really swing games.
They really honed in that range. It used to be 3 or 4.
Yeah, it was wild. It was like, you just basically whenever you have the card, you just turn somebody's charge off. Mm-hmm. But not anymore. You really do have to be pretty close. So still a very good ability. Next, we have Endless Malice. Use this immediately after a friendly fighter's failed attack. That fighter can attack again with the same weapon. That attack must target the same enemy fighter and use it only once per game. We've seen these many, many times over the history of the game. Very good effect to have.
I'm so surprised they get
Guard. Yeah, right.
They get to keep this. Yeah, the Polko Guard looking at them like, what?
But why? I don't know. Deal with it, dog. Ghosts cooler than skeletons now, I guess. But
Always
you know
were.
what? I'll take it. Next up, we've got Spectral Touch. You can use this immediately after picking a melee weapon as part of an attack. That weapon has cleave and ensnare for that attack. And the confusing part about that is that when you pick your melee weapon, that is before you pick weapon abilities. So it says that it has cleave and ensnare. That means you now have the choice to pick cleave or ensnare. You don't get both.
Yep.
Still good.
I mean, you're always going to want one of those too.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep, absolutely. And there's never a situation where you don't want one of these. So if you have an attack that absolutely must get home, go ahead and Spectral Touch.
word.
Finally, we've got Throttle. Use this immediately after your action step. Roll an attack dice for each enemy fighter adjacent to a friendly minion. So you've got a whole board check to be like anybody adjacent to a minion, roll a dice. On a sword or a crit, give that enemy fighter a stagger token. This can be used once per game.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That used to be present in some way, shape, or form on their last iteration. Everhanged had something like that. Just him specific, like the Stare of Death above, like that used to be the Briar Queen specific, right? So we've kind of opened up both of these abilities and tuned them to that openness to the Warband. Overall, I feel this is really retained and really interesting. I still want the big caveat there. Like the thing that doesn't translate so well is Varklov. But that's okay. Like this is there's reimagining and retuning and all sorts of things, revision, if you will, in a new edition. So curious to see how that plays with their identity.
Yeah, they seem good. Lots of low wound fighters though, so you are certainly at risk of losing fighters. We'll see how they play out. I'm excited to see them on the table.
You know, the one thing though that this doesn't capture is how many teleports that new deck for them had.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Well, you know what? They probably didn't
that.
need that many teleports. There's a lot of new teleports that they can try.
Absolutely.
Speaking of other dead warbands and doing some things that are interesting, how about Zandara's Gravebreakers? Are they doing anything cool these days?
Some interesting things indeed, like raising the dead, pursuing an undying love. I'll break into them here as soon as it loads. There it is. All right, so Zandar's Gravebreakers for our Inspire. We have immediately after you give a friendly fighter a raise token, inspire that fighter. Generally speaking, that's going to be Crack Tomb, Toil, and Pick, as it was before.
I was like, they're holding it.
And then additionally, immediately after you give a friendly Destined fighter, which is a rune mark here, their second or subsequent upgrade, inspire the other friendly Destined fighter. So very much so what their inspires were before.
Yeah.
Some fun things to think about there, just real quick. If they ever do print a generic raise card, you could use that to cheat and inspire. And then, but like that's if that happens. And frankly, I don't think that's happening anytime soon. Or for fighters of the value of Zandara and Fairlane here. But something that is available to you now is zero cost upgrades.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that sweetens the Inspire pot for Zandara and Fairlane for sure. So taking a look at what they gain from their Inspire, just, the general stroke, kind of as we've been given here, looks like there is
it's not a lot.
Not a lot.
To be honest.
Nothing really standing out to me.
For Lane, switches from crit Grievous to just straight Grievous. So he's 3 Fury, potentially 3 damage while he's inspired. So that's still good. He does gain a speed as well. So he goes from 4 to 5 movement. So you probably do want both of those things for Lane. He's 2 dodge base, so he doesn't gain anything there, but 5 wounds. So pretty scary.
Yeah, Zandara doesn't go up to the 2 shields she had before. That would be like one of the reasons why I would inspire her over Lane. But now I think you're probably inspiring Lane as quick as you can to roll in that damage there and grab that movement speed.
Yeah, and the odd thing is that with Zandara, the accuracy on her attack profiles flip. So her melee attack profile gets better when she inspires, goes from 3 swords to 2 smash, 2 hammers. And then her range goes from 2 hammers to 3 swords. So I guess pick which one you want to be on average more reliable and go with that one. And of course, to be clear, we're talking like 2% difference. It's not a huge difference. So basically nothing happens. You just have to remember that one becomes the other.
Well, I guess if you want a better shot at overrun, well, you'll always have an overrun tool. With either your melee when you're uninspired and then your range when you're inspired. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. The zombies get a little more damage, a little more accuracy, depending on which one it is. Like, they're fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. So then moving on from there, we have Grave Breakers. Use this immediately after a friendly minion. So that's the 3 that aren't Zandara and Lane. Immediately after a friendly minion delves, that fighter can unearth or a friendly leader can exhume. So let's take a look at those. And the wording here, a friendly leader can exhume, is I think a clever wording choice to say, hey, your leader has to be alive for this to happen.
Yep.
So let's start there. Exhume, pick a slain friendly minion, raise that fighter and place them in a hex adjacent to the friendly fighter that delved. You can only use this ability if it is picked when resolving the Gravebreaker's ability. Oh, okay, so we're going to see that in both these abilities here. That's cool. So they had the minion raise before. The placement I feel is the same.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. The only thing that's different and stands out to me immediately is you're not shifting the treasure token. You're delving, and it doesn't
slips.
It doesn't say delve treasure. It says delves. So whatever state the token is in, you can grave break. That's interesting. All on its own. Okay. And then unearth this is the other thing you can do when you grave break. Draw a number of power cards equal to the number of slain friendly fighters. You can only use this ability if as part of the grave break. Wow, Phil. Whoa.
Yeah, that's a potential for a lot of power cards.
So you're delving in the same spot, which means you're staying there, and it's not shifting out from underneath you. So once you have a dead fighter, if you have a minion on a token, they can grab a power card for you every power step.
Yeah. That is a potential for a lot of power card draw.
That's incredible.
Nope. There's like no downside there. It's also really hard to play around because if it said for each minion that was slain, then you could be like, well, I'm going to leave the zombies alone because they're not as good. And that way they don't get to draw their cards.
Sure.
But no, it's all any enemy fighters that are slain. So
yeah, if they're losing the big ones, I think they need the help.
They probably do, but that's a lot of power cards.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that, and I'm struggling.
Yeah.
It's so much. So this is one of the warbands I admittedly took a look at yesterday. Yesterday?
Yep, it was just yesterday.
Yep. And I think I went to bed dreaming about this ability.
Yeah, all the crazy stuff you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a potential 12 cards to draw here, right? If your opponent were to come and knock one of your zombies out in your very first activation, and then you can get on a feature token with like a push or something.
Yeah. Well, and it gets exponential from there. Like, let's say
if there's 2. Yeah.
So
Yep.
Huge.
Wow. That's a lot of card draw.
This warband can easily, I think, consider going above that 20 power card hand or deck. I think you can kind of consider that a lot in this new edition.
Yeah, you can probably think about it. The thing to be careful with is your opening hands are still subject to the same math as they always would be. And if you go above 20, you are putting yourself at risk of not drawing a good opening hand. So
you need we won't dive too far down this rabbit hole, but best practice is always to think like when you want to go over 20, like, are you going to be happy with that card over the other 20 you already have? And the answer has to be yes. Because if there will be a point in time where you draw that 21st card and like it could have been anything else. Always want to make sure it's worth it, but I think it's worth exploring here. So.
Certainly has the potential. Looks like they got 2 other abilities. What else we got?
So we got Destined. While a friendly Destined fighter is slain, the other friendly Destined fighter has +1 move, and their weapons have +1 attack dice. So this is our love story between Zandara and Verlaine. If one of them is dead, the other one gains a move and attack dice. I think that's a nice bonus for that fighter going forward. That's good.
Solid. Yep. Not a whole lot to say.
And then we have Undying Love. Now this has the surge symbol next to it, and this is unfortunately one of those things that we're going to need clarification on. So I'll add this to the editing pass list. It's a small list, thankfully, but it doesn't have a timing window. Is why I'm calling that out. It's once per game. We know that. We just don't know when we can use this. So it says pick 2 friendly Destined fighters, heal one of those fighters, and push the other fighter up to 3 hexes towards the other fighter.
They had that upgrade that let them do this.
Yep. I think it was heal 1 and push the other. I think this is a direct translation.
And that was at the end of the round. Maybe that was intention, and it just didn't make it onto the card.
Maybe. What is different about this though is it used to be once per round, and when applied. I mean, you got a lot more, but it's the same effect. And I mean, to be able to have it out the get go and not have to spend any glory on it, like, that's worth something. Like, I'm happy to see it here, and I'm sure like it'll be updated to be like after an action step or in the power step or something like that.
Something very reasonable, I'm sure.
Yep. Cool. Well, any final thoughts on this love story before we move on?
No, I think we got to keep moving. We got 4 more warbands to hit here. So
let's go.
All right, we got the Skinnerkin, which were a favorite of mine. So we'll see if they hold up. In terms of inspiration, it says immediately after you gain your 3rd or subsequent haunch token, inspire each friendly fighter, which is exactly what they used to do. In terms of what they gain on their inspire, looks to be similar. Kretch does not do as much damage anymore. They gain speed the same way they used to.
Looks like
Uh,
the big thing's coming up with rune marks on a couple of attacks here.
yeah, I'm guessing that's Fillet. Because it's
Yeah,
on Kretch and Grisla.
yeah. So it's crit fillet on their uninspired sides, and then it's fillet. You don't need the crit to make it happen on their
Yeah.
inspired sides. So that's probably pretty big for them. I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
So yeah. Well, let's dig into it. Otherwise their stats pretty much look the same, but Kretch doesn't get 3 damage anymore, so that's a little sad just because a lot of their fighters are on 1 damage.
Yeah, frankly, I'm not surprised to see the needle move too much, given that they
Yeah,
were
they're
the last release.
pretty close to the previous release.
Yeah.
So they have a perfect cut. So immediately after a chef, and there is a rune mark on both Kretch and Grisla to make sure that they are noted as being chefs. After a successful attack, you gain a haunch, which is the same as it used to be. Fillet is that rune mark we were talking about. If a friendly fighter's weapon has the fillet rune mark, you have access to the following weapon ability, which is fillet. If the attack was successful, gain a haunch token. So, yep. So they have it on the crit, like you said. Before they're inspired, it's on the crit. After they're inspired, they just, anytime they hit, they get 2 haunch counters.
All right.
Would have been huge previously where you could score based on the number of haunches you have, but now they probably are driving some sort of abilities. So let's see what maybe those do. And I guess first we have Grasping Talons, which is for the Karnskir. Use this immediately after a friendly Karnskir moves. Same deal as before. Pick an enemy fighter whose hex this fighter moved through and roll an attack dice. On a roll of a hammer, inflict damage to that fighter and gain a haunch. On a sword or a crit, you can push that enemy fighter up to 1 hex. Sure. Okay. Exactly the same as it used to be. They changed the dice. Okay. Still good. Still won't have some of the same tricks you used to, but that's perfectly okay. You will still be able to use this to ping people and push them out of position, which is pretty useful. And it is not a drive back, so if they're on guard, you can still use this.
So you only need 3. So yeah. Was it this way before, where it was this easy? Like, it seems like Kretch can run in, hopefully get a successful attack. Let's say with a crit, that's 2. Yep. Karnskir in, grab that hammer. We're at 3. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm assuming a lot of dice results here, yeah. But like,
it was the same. Yeah, nothing's changed. It's exactly the same. Cool. So in terms of the abilities, then, so they have Calloused Hand, and I guess it is of note, none of these are once per game. So they have Calloused Hands. This was an upgrade that they had previously. Use this immediately after a friendly fighter is picked as the target of an attack. Discard a haunch token. Save rolls made for that attack count as having more critical successes than the attack roll for the purpose of the Standfast ability only. You can use this ability once per turn. So you just get to choose to have Standfast whenever you want it.
Wow.
As long as you have haunches, you can discard. But you can do it as many times as you want, so long as you have haunches.
I mean, that's a major reason to have haunches. That reduces damage.
Huge. Wow. -1 damage basically anytime you have any haunches. And you can't be driven back because you have Standfast.
That's intense.
Wow. Okay, so very, very good. Definitely want haunches for that. I might want to try holding some treasure tokens with these guys if that's the case.
Yeah, I just looked. Apparently there's strike. This ability says otherwise.
Maybe we'll flex a little bit here, guys. Precise Fillet then is their other ability. They have use this immediately after picking a friendly fighter to attack. That fighter's melee weapons have critical fillet for that attack. You can only use this once per turn. So you can make any of your fighters have fillet. Okay.
Hold on. Really?
Just
Wow. I'm
choose
looking
crit fillet. Yeah,
I'm looking for more restrictions on this, and they're not there. So this is
yeah,
you just have this. Like it's less that Gristla and Kretch have it, and more that everyone does
yeah.
on their melee always. Is it melee? Melee.
It is
Okay.
only on melee, and it. I mean, the fact that it says once per turn isn't a caveat at all. You just right
Yeah.
because every turn, every activation is a turn. Like you just, yep, whoever I want to have. So you can just have anybody do it. That's
Hold on.
weird. Why? Why?
Phil, question for you is in AOS, is it called a round or a turn?
Uh,
I don't know.
I don't know.
But these both feel like once per round ability.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they're supposed to be.
So okay,
Okay. Well, anyway, that's
keep going.
neat.
Yeah, that's wild.
It just makes it kind of wild that they wouldn't just print the ability on everybody's attacks. And then we have more for the pantry. You can use this in your power step. Pick a friendly fighter with any move and or charge tokens. Push that fighter up to 1 hex. That push must end adjacent to an enemy fighter. Use this ability once per turn.
Yeah, lovely.
So you just
that's interesting.
A sidestep every single turn.
Well,
but they have to have a move or charge token.
They have to have a move or
and
charge
they have
token
to end adjacent.
and end adjacent.
But still,
that's interesting too. And again, I would be ecstatic to have each of these abilities once per round.
Yeah.
To have them at once per turn.
Yeah.
These are good. These are really good.
Yeah. Sidestep once a turn is like probably better than it should be. I know it is fairly limited, but like you can do a lot with just shuffling fighters around other enemy fighters just to like make room for other fighters' charges and stuff. So
interesting.
Cool.
This is
I like it.
A shift in their identity.
Yeah.
I don't know how, like I feel like you have ingrained in me that their identity is more haunch equals more glory. And that doesn't seem to be the type of thing that they're translating over to War Scrolls, because they really want that like 16 and 7 ecosystem. Yeah.
But there's still 4 health and then 3 on everyone else. And now that you have the ability to just consistently reduce damage, man, that's actually going to feel like a lot more
health.
Yeah. Wow.
Interesting.
Cool. All right. Well, Skinnerkin, sound fun. That is our last death warband. We have just destruction left to go. We will start with Zarbag's Gits. If I can find the war scroll here. There it is.
Yeah, so
what are these guys doing?
I can jump in here and find that out. It's Inspire immediately after your total glory points are equal to or greater than the number of friendly fighters on the battlefield. Inspire each friendly fighter. Whoa.
For folks who don't know, you have 9 fighters in your warband.
Yeah, you're the only one. You've always been the only one. And historically, we've seen like different glory totals controlling when they inspire. We've seen, I think, between 3 glory and 5 at different iterations in erratas.
I think their original printing was just 4? 2.
2? Oh my gosh. Okay, so
like you had to have more. So it was like once you got to 3, I think you inspired. I think.
Okay.
Back in like early Nightvault days.
Point being, that paints a picture of you used to be able to inspire 9 fighters potentially.
Usually 8 or 7, because you'd have somebody get got right away. But
for sure,
yeah.
Off of a small fistful of glory. Now, the longer your fighters stay alive, the more glory you need to tip that picture towards inspiration, and then you inspire the whole warband. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see how they're going to handle their initial phase of the game versus what they're gaining. So like initially, most of them are hanging out on 3 move, 1 dodge, and various damage outputs. Generally 1 to 2. 1 if you're a lowly grot. 2 if you're one of the squigs. Yeah, squigs. And 2 if you're an important git. But Snark hanging out at that infamous 2 fury, 3 damage, and starting on 2 dodge. Now what they look to gain as a warband, most of them inspire to 2 dodge.
Yep, all the little goblins and the squigs gain.
That's huge. Brian will be really happy to see that. He missed their 2 dodge. That was on their first iteration, not their second iteration. And here we are in the third, in the new world. They're all worth a glory. We'll get to that in a moment. And when Snark, let's talk about Snark. When Snark inspires, he goes up in accuracy a little bit so 3 swords, 3 damage, and 3 dodge. Oh my gosh. Thankfully this maniac's on 3 movement speed, but still, wow,
it's cool. All
right,
so I think the only printed 3 defense characteristic we've seen.
The only one I can think of. So and definitely something I didn't expect him to be able to keep, for being frank.
Well, he's got to do a lot of heavy lifting here.
Yeah. So let's see. Barely Worth It is the next ability, and this explains why we have 9 fighters that all give a glory each. After the 7th friendly fighter is slain, friendly fighters have a bounty characteristic of 0.
Okay, so it still caps at 7. It's just we didn't have to somehow try and pick who are the worthless grots.
That's hilarious. In title too, Barely Worth It.
Yeah,
you've killed 7 of us already.
Yeah,
leave us alone. So Squig Herder is our next ability. Immediately after deploying a friendly Drizgit, you must place a friendly Gobblelock and Bonecracker. These are 2 squigs, each in an empty hex that is not a starting hex and has no feature tokens in it adjacent to that fighter, so adjacent to Drizgit. This is, they had this before, they had to put it somewhere. This is how the squigs get deployed. They're always with Drizgit here. So then moving on to what you're actually going to be doing with the War Scroll, I'm going to start with spinning. So sure. Spinning is for you Snark enthusiasts out there. Use this immediately after a fighter is pushed, placed, or enters a hex adjacent to a friendly Snark. Inflict 1 damage on that fighter. That's incredible. That's going to be impactful always.
Very much so. Lethal hexes don't exist anymore in this edition, but if they did, he would be a giant pool of them.
He is. He's taking the idea of lethal hexes and bringing it into 2nd edition as a living embodiment of them.
Yeah.
In fact, I looked this up. So, of course, I snuck a peek on Zarbag's Gits because of Brian. Placed is also placement. So be careful with him at the beginning. You want to make sure that you don't put him on a starting hex that's adjacent to other starting hexes before you place your other fighters.
Right. Yeah.
You might accidentally deal 1 damage during placement to your own fighter.
And it is very important to note that this does not say when an enemy fighter does any of these things. It's just a fighter. So he is dangerous to all of your fighters as well.
Yeah, he is an absolute fanatic.
Yeah, it's very cool. There's another ability here that is unique to Snark. It's called Overconfidence, and it's just that he can't be given guard tokens. I think that is just fair to balance the fact that he already has 3 defense dice.
I like that. As somebody who's going to have to play against this a lot, I'm happy for that.
Brian's favorite warband here.
So then we have Scurry. Use this immediately after a friendly fighter moves. If a different friendly fighter was adjacent to the fighter that moved before it started that move, that friendly fighter can move.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is what they did before. They can swarm.
It's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And so movement efficiency is their stick, and that's going to help them be a take and hold warband. Quite good.
100%.
Spiteful Volley is our final ability for them. Use this immediately after a friendly fighter's successful attack made with a weapon with volley. So let's take a look real quick before we read the rest of this. What has volley? I'm going to assume it is the 3 archers.
It is. But
yes.
But again, this is one where this is the weapon ability, so you just have to be careful. You can't stack this with something else like Grievous or Cleave or anything.
Okay, that's cool. So pick a different friendly fighter within 3 hexes of that fighter whose ranged weapon has volley. That fighter can immediately attack with that weapon. This ability cannot be used more than once per turn. Oh, interesting. Okay, so you're not getting all 3 to shoot at once because of that final clause there. You're getting 2, as long as you've got somebody within 3 hexes of the first one that threw that into the air. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the weapon abilities thing is going to trip people up because it's like, oh, it's an ability. It's got this thing. And it's like, well, but weapons really only have those keywords when you use them, right? Because in this case, to make an attack with volley, you have to have picked volley.
Yes.
For the weapon ability. I don't think that's super clear.
I guess what's nice to know. I mean, is it like? I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I almost feel like it's not a weapon ability. It's in the same spot as a weapon ability would be. So but maybe it's just tagging the weapon. Frankly, this probably should have been to the left of the attack profile. Because if it's on the right, it's a weapon ability, which is where it is.
Yeah.
But it's looking for somebody else that has volley for that second attack.
All right.
Anyways,
so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm derailing things a little bit, but either way, it's worth probably an FAQ.
I'm not going to dive into the rule book right now because we're going to cross this finish line.
Yeah,
but I think it's worth just looking into if that classifies as a weapon ability or not.
Absolutely.
So
overall, I think it looks like they got a lot of neat tools in this edition. It'll be fun to see how they hold up.
I noticed they have a second edition upgrade kind of baked in. What was it called? Squinty Glaring. Where their Scurry is currently uncapped. Historically, we've seen move or charge tokens be qualifiers in here to say kind of cap off who can do this, because you can create chains and move them all.
Yeah. So you just need to. Anyway, I wasn't necessarily going to go down this rabbit hole, but
it's there.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll get clarification on it. I think that's the type of thing that's not intended, but it's there.
Infinite moves is probably not intended.
Yeah.
Stall the game. All right. Well, we've got 2 left. I like this next one quite a lot, so I'm going to read this one. So we've got Dagox Stab-Ladz. Their Inspire says, immediately after inflicting damage on an enemy fighter using the Cruel Stab ability, inspire the friendly fighter. Well, what's the Cruel Stab ability, you might ask? Well, the Cruel Stab ability is a surge ability that says, a friendly fighter with no charge tokens can use this immediately after your action step. Pick an enemy fighter that is not vulnerable, that is adjacent to that friendly fighter, and roll an attack dice. On a hammer or a crit, inflict 1 damage on the enemy fighter. I think that is a pretty cool ability to have. If somebody charges into you, they really have to be careful, because that might mean every time you activate afterwards, they're getting stabbed.
Yeah, you're going to really you're going to want to run Commanding Stride with this Warband. You're going to want to run Sidestep, really any pushes you can, because you can turn like what feels like, oh, I'm okay, into, oh no, I'm getting stabbed repeatedly.
Yeah. A cruel boy has snuck up behind me with a rusty shiv and is stabbing my kidneys out. The fact that it's just like every single turn, if they're adjacent, you can just be like, all right, here we go. And I believe the way this is worded, if you had multiple fighters that were adjacent, you should then be able to do all of your friendly fighters that can trigger it.
Really? A friendly fighter with no charge tokens can use this immediately. Oh my god.
Yeah. So I mean, like, if you've got somebody surrounded, right, you should just be able to go to town.
Oh wow. Yeah. This gets scary quickly.
You can't kill anybody with it. So there's that. But
sure,
it's still scary. So watch out.
And then it's still dice dependent.
Okay. It is still, it's a 50-50s, but you get a lot of bites at the apple here. So that's sort of, both of those two things go together to understand their inspiration. In terms of stats, they're actually basically identical to what they were last edition. They're all 4 wounds. They're all 3 movement except for Grak, because he doesn't wear armor. He doesn't believe in armor. A lot of 2 smash or 3 fury, depending on whose weapons you're looking at, and decent amount of damage across the board. You got 2 damage on Daggok, Grak, and Herc, and then Jags has Crit Grievous. So they're just sort of your normal elite stat balls. They can kind of do it all. In terms of inspiration, you gain an extra save dice on Daggok and Jags, and everybody else is getting additional accuracy or damage or accuracy or damage.
I'm really glad to see Grak here with grapple, but I got a comment. Grapple on range 1 feels way less interesting and valuable than grapple on range 2, and I don't know why he doesn't have it on range 2. Range 1, you only have so many directions to go, but like range 2, that could be like, I attack and pull you into me.
Yeah, it's probably because of how good it is that they were like, let's maybe just leave it at range 1.
It's probably the case.
Pick your poison here. They all inspire to some good effect. Sort of just whoever you can get in there with those very random, admittedly, inspires. There are other abilities. There's sort of a big one that I guess we can just hit first. This is Scheme and Gets. This replaces their old scheme mechanic.
This is huge.
And this is a weird one. So instead of playing a ploy in your opponent's power step, you can discard ploys to use the abilities below. The number of ploys that you discard determines which abilities apply in the next turn. The effects are cumulative, and the effect of each ability lasts until the end of your next turn. And those abilities are, if you discarded 1 card, you get +1 move for all your friendly fighters. If you discard 2 cards, you keep the +1 move, but also all enemy fighters are flanked. That's pretty cool. And if you happen to have 3 ploys in your hand and you don't have anything you want to do with any of those, you can discard 3, have +1 move, all enemy fighters are flanked, and all friendly fighters' weapons get +1 dice.
That's fascinating.
It's pretty neat, but like, thinking about it, how many times do you have a power hand with 3 ploys?
3. Yeah.
And you don't want to do anything with any of them. And you're just like, you know what? I would actually prefer that all of these just read, do whatever Scheme and Get says.
Yeah. Man. I wonder if this is like like the type of warband where you just shove as many like abilities as you can into the deck, and then
Yeah, just fill your hands so you can do whatever you want. The thing that I was thinking about that might work is that it gives you some flexibility in bringing really niche but powerful ploys.
Oh,
where it's like,
that's a good take.
In certain matchups, I really want this effect, but in other matchups, I'll never use that effect. There's a lot of times where you're building decks, you would never even consider taking that card because you're like, what if I can't use that? Well, this deck says you can always use it. It always has at least the caveat of saying it gives +1 move.
Interesting. So we could see them become the house of niche strength.
Yeah, like trying to play counter strategies pretty exclusively. I think.
All right.
I don't know. I don't know if that's good enough, but it's an interesting thing. I think there was a lot to dive into here. This is another one of the mastery warbands, so just something to keep in mind. In terms of their other abilities, they're all once per game. You have a first one is 2 against 1 you get. Use this immediately after your action step. You can push a friendly fighter 1 hex. You can only use this ability once per game. So just a free sidestep after your action step. I like it. It's solid. I would never be upset to have sidestep.
Yeah, same.
Thief of Cunning is the next one. It says use this in a power step. Draw a number of power cards equal to the number of damaged enemy fighters. You can only use this ability once per game. I don't know how good this is.
Damage enemy fighters. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad to see, if you're going to focus on something like Scheming Gits, I'm glad to see a draw built straight in here.
Yeah.
But you're going to be tempted to spread damage around, and that's not always the best use of your time making attacks and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
You usually want to focus somebody down, get the bounty, get them out of the way. But I like it. I just how often is it going to be more than 1 or 2?
Yeah, that is, I think, the big question. It certainly pairs well with Cruel Stab. It's just a way that you could be just throwing out extra damage kind of for free.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think you'll likely want to try and trigger this to draw 2. And if you can get more than that, it's just really a big plus. You don't need more than that, but if you can do it, great. Final one is Nasty Poisons. Use this immediately after an action step, as any action step. Roll a dice for each damaged enemy fighter. On a roll of a crit, inflict 1 damage to that fighter. You can use this once per game. That is pretty bad. Sorry, folks. 1 in 6 chance to deal a damage, and only to fighters who are damaged already. Not good. It's not good. You are not likely to deal any damage with this.
Yeah. I don't know. That's such a potent effect. I think. It's fine. It's here for fun. And like
absolutely.
Every once in a while it'll go off. But like if that effect was any more accurate, like
it'd be really gross, right? Like it's tough because on the one hand, on just crit, it's very unreliable. But on the other hand, if it was anything more, it would start to feel oppressive.
Yeah.
You could get people vulnerable and just be like, I can pretty much guarantee that I can take you out.
I'm looking forward to seeing you explore this warband.
They should be interesting.
Fascinating.
I have no idea if they're good. They're just really interesting. Final one. We did them all. We got one more to go.
Here we go.
It's also marked as mastery, which is interesting. This is Molog's Mob.
Take us home.
Yeah, so inspire immediately after damage is inflicted on your leader. If they have 4 or more damage tokens, inspire each friendly fighter. That is 1 more damage than it used to be, I believe. It used to only be with 3 is what would trigger it. but otherwise works the same. Mollog is 7 wounds still for 4 bounty, which means all your squigs are 1. Still 3 damage base, but at range 1 instead of range 2.
7 wounds, so bumped up from Mirror City.
Was he down to 6 in the Mirrored City?
Yep, down to 6.
Okay,
yeah.
So he's back up to 7.
Yeah. Regaining that status.
Yeah, being the guy. He does pick up Grievous for his range 1 attack, so he will go up to 4 like he used to at range 1. So that's still pretty neat.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy.
You gotta give him that, I think, in a world where he doesn't have scything anymore. I mean, I'm glad he doesn't have scything anymore.
What else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And then the squigs, I guess they do all go to 2 damage. Their accuracy is not great though, and the stalag squigs still can't move. So, and you don't gain any defense boosts. So they're all just sitting on 1 defense. Bat squig and spite shroom are 1 dodge. Stalag squig is 1 block. That's very interesting. Don't gain a whole lot from being inspired. Okay, well, Mollog is running the show here. Let's see what else they've got going on to try and help Mollog out. We have always lurking. So when you deploy a friendly lurker, which is Stalag squig, you can place that fighter in an empty hex that does not contain a feature token and is not a starting hex in enemy territory. This fighter cannot be removed from the battlefield unless it is slain, pushed, or moves.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was curious about that. So we have the 0 movement value, right? I was like, does that mean he can benefit from a +1? Yes. However... he will immediately die from moving. So best not. Huh. Okay.
Weird.
Fighter cannot be removed from the battlefield unless it is slain, pushed, or moves. So that reads to me, if ever pushed or moves, it is removed from the battlefield. These are the circumstances when it is removed.
Or is it just saying that abilities that would remove him from the battlefield, you can't do that?
Oh, interesting.
Unless you're doing one of these other things? But that doesn't... Okay, that's weird. I don't know what that means.
It's not the best worded thing.
I'm not sure what they were trying to get at there. I think that's just, we need clarification. I have no idea what that's supposed to mean.
All right.
Well, anyway, ignoring that, you still deploy him kind of the way he used to, just not in a feature token or a starting hex in enemy territory, just so you can't block out your opponent from doing stuff during deployment, which I think is a good choice. Then we got tag along. Use this immediately after your leader moves. You can push a different friendly fighter up to 2 hexes, and the push must end adjacent to your leader or an enemy fighter adjacent to your leader. So basically you can just always, after Mollog moves, push one of the squigs to sort of come along with him.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Except for Stalag Squig, I guess.
Yep, because I guess he can't push Stalag Squig, probably.
I think.
I don't know. I like that. I think it's a little risky in the sense that those fighters are very vulnerable, but kind of just have like your support caddies just hanging out, being ready to just run interference and help make your attacks more accurate.
Did Bat Squig used to get up to like 2 or 3 dodge, like at least 2?
Yes, he did. I think he started on 2 and went up to 3, and now he's just 1 all the time.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pour one out.
Yep. Poor Bat Squig. He's gonna get swatted pretty quickly, I think, in this edition.
Yeah, but the pushes is really interesting. It's just, you're gonna probably have to figure out how to get some save dice or extra health on these fighters.
Yeah, absolutely. They did all gain 1 health. It looks like they're all 3 now. So they used to all be 2. So that's something. You're a little beefier for whatever that's worth. And then we have Unnatural Hazards, which is actually the last ability on the War Scroll. So this is
the
like
last ability we get to read.
one of
Let's do it.
the lightest War Scrolls yet, and it's the last one. At the start of the first action step in each battle round, you can pick one of the following abilities to apply until the end of the current battle round. You have Nasty Critters. Enemy fighters adjacent to any friendly minions are surrounded. So that's pretty cool. Tripping Hazard. After an enemy fighter enters a hex adjacent to any friendly minions, give that enemy fighter a stagger token.
Oh, funny. They all do it.
Also good.
Yeah.
But only when they enter. So placed will not do it.
I feel like that's entering.
Is it entering? Okay. Well, we can check the rulebook later. But either way, they help to provide some accuracy in either way. So that's neat. And then Watch Out, They Bite. After an enemy fighter is pushed, placed, or enters any hex adjacent to any friendly minions, for the first time, roll an attack dice. On a hammer or a crit, inflict a damage on that fighter. So they can kind of do a sort of Snark impression.
I feel like I'm picking that one at the start of
a lot
round.
of the time, I think so. But, Mollog being 2 hammers is good, but not like, go ahead and cash that check and take it straight to the bank, because that it's a 50-50, right? And you really need Mollog to be doing that work. So I think there will be times where you're just like, man, I need some additional accuracy, and these critters can really help me get there.
Yeah, and do you really need the extra damage if Mollog's hitting?
Well, I mean, Stormcast are like all 5 and stuff, so yeah, you might.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, that's neat. I like it. Overall, I still don't think I'll be happy to see Mollog, but I think that's more some old scars than anything else.
Same. Well, cool. I'm curious to see what Jazz will think.
Yeah. Hopefully she likes them. That will be cool.
Agree. That would be a comeback story too.
Favorite.
She was a little cold on this last iteration. Excited at first, but then the more she dug into it,
saw some of the shortcomings.
So curious.
All right. Well, that
thanks for hanging and doing all this.
That is all of them.
Gosh.
We ended up running a bit longer than expected, so I think we'll just close things out here.
Yep.
As always, if you'd like to reach us and discuss these new warbands, discuss anything else that's been going on with Underworlds, you can reach us at WTHcast over on X, or whatthehexcast@gmail.com, or over at our Discord. We're always hanging out there. It's a fun place to be. Come check it out. If you want to check out any other content, you can head on over to themortalrealms.com. We've got all sorts of stuff for the different lore and games in the Mortal Realms, which is the overall universe of the Age of Sigmar. Coming up next, hopefully something else. We still have, I'm sure, going to be plenty of new content to deal with soon. I mean, we know that there's been so many things happening in such a short period of time. I'm sure there will be something else that comes up that we need to cover.
Yeah, if nothing else, Worlds.
Yes, yes, that's right. Okay, well, we'll almost certainly have something to say about Worlds, although there will have many days of live coverage of that. So please go check that out. That'll be something that's coming up next. Finally, are you ready, Skyler? I have a Flavitext quiz for you.
If I ever thought I was going to be able to dodge it, today was the day. But all right, let's go.
Nope, never. Contractual obligation. What the Hex members must answer a Flavitext quiz. So this one, I'm not going to start by giving any hints. I think you can do it. I believe in you. This says, Critical's refusal of the bone tithe had, in hindsight, perhaps been a little premature.
Of the bone tithe?
That is something of a clue.
Okay. I'm gonna go with, we're dealing with I'm gonna narrow this down. We're dealing with a pillage and plunder card.
You are not correct on that.
Dang.
This is right. Blazing Assault.
Blazing Assault. Okay. Oh my gosh. I'm drawing a blank. You're gonna have to. You're gonna have to.
Okay, so Kanan is in the art.
Okay.
He's staring down at Kritatak.
Is this
Kritatak is
unassailable?
It is not. This is a
Okay.
surge
Okay.
objective.
Which, yeah, unassailable is not in that deck. What am I doing? Um. Surge objective? No.
Yep. It is.
I'm gonna need all the help.
No. All right. I don't know what else to tell you, so I think we're just going to call it there. This one is Strong Start. So we've gotten a strong start into the new edition.
You're right. I should have got it. That's perfect.
From Davey, who is joining us in spirit, the recommended listening for this episode will be from Richard Buckner, his surprise AZ title, because this was a surprise of another release. For What the Hex, I've been Phil.
And I've been Skyler. Yeah, because we're just I should pull these up. We're just gonna like pull them up one at a time in front of ourselves, and
yeah, just like first takes kind of idea. So just look at the War Scroll. We'll talk through. This is what they have. What do we think? On to the next one.
that sounds good.
Keep it quick. Keep it simple.